Hello, my name is Alex Decker, and my presentation, Made in China 2025, explores the forced labor in Xinjiang and its effect on foreign trade. ASPI, also known as Australian Strategic Policy Institute, published a report on forced labor of ethnic minorities from Xinjiang. 1 million members of the Uyghur and other Muslim ethnic minorities confirmed in re-education camps. Political indoctrination under constant surveillance and threats to family. Once graduated, you are forced to be transferred to factories where they are under constant surveillance and during off hours receive patriotic education and learn Mandarin language in classes. The ASPI report named 83 brands that were associated with using these factories for the products. Companies that are found to have these factories in their supply chain may be in breach of laws prohibiting forced labor. For example, the factory that manufactures shoes for Nike is equipped with watchtowers, barbed wire fences, and police guard boxes. If Nike is aware of these human rights violations, it could be held accountable. In March 2020, US, European Union, Britain, and Canada imposed travel and financial sanctions on 4 Chinese officials accused of human rights violations in the Xinjiang region. H&M of Sweden expressed concerns about reports of forced labor based on a decision by the Better Cotton Initiative to stop licensing cotton from Xinjiang because of the difficulty tracing how it was being produced, basically, in other words, whether forced labor was being used or not. China responds by calling for a boycotting of H&M and other foreign clothing and footwear brands. Stated, the H and the M in Chinese stands for lie and falsehood. H&M brands disappeared from major Chinese e-commerce platforms. Smartphone apps for H&M, Adidas, along with Nike, also went missing from Chinese app stores. Mercantilism is one of 2 theories of trade. Mercantilism, as each state protects its own interests at the expense of others. More wealth equals more strength. Increased national productivity. Large population to make nation militarily strong and for cheap labor. Have a positive balance of trade. Mercantilism basically means my gain is your loss, which in other words, a zero-sum game. Liberalism is the second theory of the theory of trade. Liberalism is building international organizations, institutions, and norms so states can mutually benefit from economic exchanges. It also increases states' wealth, shared interest in economic exchanges, maximum wealth / optimal efficiency, supply and demand set prices, no governmental interference. In other words, liberalism believes that all nations can achieve benefits working together through international trade and not closing off any of the borders. China is clearly operating under the mercantilism theory. China's mercantilism theory protects their own interest at the expense of others, using their economy to increase their power and also wealth. Government is centralized, controls capital movement, discourages imports, and encourages exports. They want to be a global power and do not care who they hurt in the process. China has increased domestic production, becoming the world factory, using cheap, sometimes forced labor for key products such as steel, paper, and aluminum. Like in Xinjiang, where they are forcing minority Muslim ethnic groups into labor and political indoctrinating them to follow the party line. They manipulate the exchange rate to encourage exports and discourage imports, which has led to a huge positive trade surplus, not a zero-sum game, which is favored by the liberalism theory. This has allowed China to gain economic power over some developed nations. Clearly, China is operating under the theory of mercantilism and using protectivism. Protectionism means when states manipulate international trade to strengthen one or more domestic and shelter them from world markets. China is practicing protectionism by placing restrictions on international trading for the benefit of their domestic economy. China became a member of the WTO, or the World Trade Organization, in 2001, which means that they are supposed to abide by the WTO rules, which prohibit importation of goods made with forced labor. The forced labor in Xinjiang is not only in violation of the WTO, but also breaching the Chinese Constitution, which prohibits discrimination based on race or religion. As such, sanctions applied by the Western countries were appropriate. However, China is not playing by the rules. They often pressure foreign clothing, travel, and other brands over actions by their governments. In the case of Xinjiang, the Chinese government rejected abuse complaints, stating re-education camps were for job training to support economic developments and combat Islamic radicalism. Made in China 2025 was launched in 2015. It was a 10-year plan to update China's manufacturing base by rapidly developing 10 high-tech industries. China is afraid of international blowback, so it framed as aspirational and unofficial. They want to have 70% self-sufficient in high-tech industries by 2049, the 100th anniversary of People's Republic of China. Fear of China plan involving forced technology transfers and intellectual property theft, with China ignoring intellectual property disputes. Allow China to copy designs and sell imitation which undermining original product. Mercantilism is clearly being practiced in China. Practices exposed by behavior at Xinjiang and responses to criticism. If allowed to continue unchecked, China will be allowed to obtain control over the most profitable segments of global supply chains and product networks.